Sentences show information blocks in order of relevance. This is lesson 3 in the architecture of grammar. My name is Léandre Larouche. I'm the author of the architecture of grammar and I'm the founder of Trivium Writing. My goal is to make you the best writer you can be so that you can be successful in the things you do. Now, in the last video, we've talked about the components of a sentence and we've talked about the grammatical requirement. So we've talked about the fact that we always need a who and a what. We always need someone doing something in a sentence. That's critical. However, as we've mentioned, you also need these other elements such as when, where, why, how, etc. Now, this begs the question, in which order do we put these information blocks? And is who and what, just taking these two, is this the only order in which we can put them? Now, the answer is these information blocks, they always go in order of relevance. So in other words, they go from the most important to the least important. The first information block that we put is going to be the one that is emphasized. So we have a who and a what. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about is the two voices in the English language. Maybe you've heard about active voice versus passive voice. It trips a lot of people. It's not an easy concept to grasp, but I want to make it as simple as humanly possible for you so that you can leverage that concept to write very effectively and become a better writer. So what you're looking at right now, the who and the what, that is active. This is the active voice, who, what, in this order. Why is it active? Well, it's active because you have someone doing something. The subject comes first. This is the nature of a story. Someone does something. Now put that in contrast with passive. I'm going to write it here on the board. Passive voice is when the what becomes emphasized. It's when it goes before the who. And so active voice is who, then what. Passive voice is what, then who. So let's reuse my example of Léandre drinks coffee. That's active. I do the action. So Léandre drinks coffee. In the passive voice, the coffee is drunk by Léandre. Now you'll notice that's very heavy. It doesn't sound really well. And in 95% of cases, you don't want to use the passive voice. In 95% of the cases. Now, of course, there are cases in which it's appropriate to use passive voice. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist, right? So when is it appropriate to use passive voice? Well, it's appropriate to use passive voice when you are trying to conceal the subject. So for example, if you're talking about a criminal investigation and you can't reveal who the criminal is, something like that, you can use the passive voice. If you truly want to emphasize the object because it's more important, for example, if the story were about the coffee and not about me, then it might be appropriate to write that sentence in a passive voice. Now, the other thing is there are other instances. For example, if you want to be more, I guess you could say, polite, passive voice may be useful. I'll give you an example. Recently, one of my friends who lives in a big apartment building received a notice from the property management that they were doing too much noise. And truth be told, they had been pouring way too much. But the email that he received was all written in passive voice. So noise complaints were filed. It wasn't saying residents filed noise complaints. It was saying file complaints were filed. So everything in that whole email was written in a passive voice, and you often see that especially when we are trying to shift the blame away from the people. And this email was a little passive aggressive, but it was not directly accusatory, and it was a very polite, formal email. So And a lot of the time, if you read government documents or like public relations documents where you're dealing with something very dicey, then you will often see passive voice. It is not recommended. If you are writing to be understood, to be clear, to be compelling, try to avoid passive voice as much as is possible. Now let's move to the other information blocks that you'll find in your sentences. All right. So we've got the who and the what. That's, we need this in the sentence for the sentence to make sense. Now, we want to add other things. So let me give you a very, very simple example. Women like to dance. Let's add where. Let's say women like to dance in Italy. Okay, we have the where. So what are we emphasizing here? We're emphasizing women, and then, we have like to dance. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, what if we reverse the order? What if we did, what if we put where first? So 1, 2, and 3. In Italy, women like to dance. Now we're putting the emphasis on Italy. We're putting the emphasis on the where, on the location, and so it changes the meaning of the sentence slightly. We could also add why. Let's say that the reason why is because it's part of their culture. Women like to dance in Italy because it is part of their culture. So that would be, 1, 2, 3, 4. Women like to dance in Italy because it is part of their culture. Now, this sentence is a little iffy with these components. You have to get practice. You have to develop your ear. And if you're a non-native English speaker, it might be a little tricky at first, but don't give up. Because I'm a non-native English speaker. I learned English as the second language. My first language is French. And so I learned all of this. And it is possible. It just takes a little bit more time. You have to be very attuned to what you read, what you hear, etc. Now we could also start the sentence with why. Because it is part of their culture, women in Italy like to dance. Now we could also add when. Now before we go any further, I want to warn you that the more information blocks you add to a sentence, the more, heavy your sentence can become, and it also becomes more complicated. So as I'm doing this, now I need to think a lot more about whether the sentence is actually going to sound right, okay? So it can become a little tricky the more information blocks you have in a sentence. So women like to dance, okay. Because it is part of the culture, women in Italy like to dance in the morning. So that should be 4, and that's going to be 5, okay. Because it is part of the culture, women in Italy like to dance in the morning. Okay, so here's the thing though. You have different levels of information, okay? So in Italy, the women in Italy, it implies that these are Italian women. It's not just in Italy. So the Italy has to come before the when. So that's what I mean when I say it can get a little tricky, but with practice, you're going to get it right. And if you go to lesson 3 in the architecture of grammar, you have a lot of different examples that emphasize all these different information blocks. You have thorough examples and you can write your own sentences, so you get a lot of practice. So go to lesson 3 in the architecture of grammar, and so you can get that practice you need to really understand how to order these information blocks, and order of relevance.